So a festival that literally gets everybody's blood pumping in every sense of the word was seen as a purification ritual. Welcome back to the Diaries of a Witch podcast. My name is Angelica Crashi, and today I have my fuzzy red shirt and my leopard print bucket hat because we are talking about one very specific pagan holiday that I absolutely love. I celebrate it every year, and I just find it so fun and fascinating. So I just wanted to talk all about this festival and just kind of like do a deep dive into this ancient Roman festival called Lupercalia, as well as how to celebrate this as a modern witch, as a modern practitioner, and some of my takeaways, about this holiday, how we can look at this holiday from a magical lens and understand some of the rituals that make up this holiday. So Lupercalia tends to get a lot of airtime. It's really, really fascinating, and it obviously has this erotic, sensual quality to it. So I feel like most people either know or have heard the word Lupercalia. Maybe you associate it with Valentine's Day, and later that becomes important, right? Because Valentine's Day is partially derived from the festival of Lupercalia. But it's also gained a lot of pop culture depictions. I remember watching the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina episode in the second season where they celebrate Lupercalia. This holiday has also been adopted by the Satanic Temple, which is a non-theistic Satanism group, and they essentially work with the symbolism of the holiday, dropping any theistic qualities, and celebrate this holiday for its desire, carnality, lust, all of which are values for modern Satanists, right? But the origin of Lupercalia is Roman. It's an old festival that was established alongside the founding of Rome in 8 BCE, most likely, and it was changed under different emperors slightly to align with their policies and their visions for Rome. It was eventually disbanded in the late 5th century AD by Pope Gelasius I. It was just too wild for the Catholics. The Catholics wanted nothing to do with Lupercalia. However, the Catholics did make a couple of tweaks and changes to this holiday, and instead of a ceremony of being matched with another person for fertility reasons, they essentially started handing out little saint cards to people, and this eventually becomes what we know as Valentine's Day, and the handing out of saint cards in lieu of names of suitors becomes handing out valentines. The festival of Lupercalia is directly tied in with the city's mythological lore and is dedicated to the founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus, who were twin sons of Mars. Romulus and Remus were conceived when Mars fell in love with a Vestal virgin. She was the daughter of King Numitor, who was removed from his position and overthrown by his brother Amulius. And there was this prophecy that Numitor's daughter, whose name was Rhea Silva, would birth children that would overthrow Amulius, who's the king that, overthrew her father. So essentially what he does is the king Amulius makes her a Vestal virgin, makes her take these oaths and become a Vestal virgin, a priestess of Vesta or Hestia, which is the Greek version, so that she could never bear children, so that, she would have to basically be chaste her entire life. However, what ends up happening is Mars falls in love with her, and she ends up giving birth to twin sons who end up becoming Romulus and Remus. When it was discovered that she gave birth to her twins, Amulius, who is her uncle, throws them in the river Tiber to basically unalive them. However, just like other myths where this happens as well, they survive, right? But they survive in a really interesting way. They were found and raised by a she-wolf who essentially takes them on as her own children. And then eventually they're found on the shore of the Palatine Hill by a shepherd named Faustus, who is King Amulius's shepherd. They were playfully named Romulus and Remus by the shepherd and his wife due to the unlikely kinship that they had with their she-wolf mother. Remus, of course, means wolf. The etymology of the name Romulus is something that I was interested in when I was thinking about this episode, because if Remus means wolf, right, and they were found on the Palatine Hill being raised by a wolf, then what does Romulus mean, right? So the etymology of Romulus, the name Romulus, literally means of Rome, a citizen of Rome, or a little Roman. So I was kind of interested. I was like, so according to the myth, like, why did the shepherd name Romulus that when the city of Rome had not been founded yet, right? Remember that Romulus and Remus end up creating the city of Rome. So, like, where did the fucking name Romulus come from? There are a few theories of why he's named that. One of them is that the river Tiber, which is the river that they were thrown into, the river Tiber's more indigenous archaic name was Rumen. Another theory is that the Greek word for strength is Rome, with an H. And the other theory is that, like his brother Remus, the name comes directly from the association with the she-wolf, because the term Ruma was an ancient Etruscan word that referred to the she-wolf. Regardless of the etymology, which I find endlessly interesting, but regardless of that, the two boys grow up to overthrow their great uncle. Woo, yay, how great. They essentially help their grandfather regain power, which is super fun, I guess. And then they go on to find their own city. So they go back to the Palatine Hill where they were found by the shepherd, and that is the site that they want to build their new city. So they essentially begin construction on their new city. However, what ends up happening is Romulus gets really mad at Remus because Remus is kind of like taunting him. Just, brotherly stuff, I guess. So Romulus kills Remus one day by pushing him off of the city walls that they're building. And then essentially what ends up happening is Romulus names the city after himself, and the city that we know today as Rome is born. So back to the festival of Lupercalia. This festival is celebrated on February 15th, and it was created to honor Romulus and Remus. Since Romulus is tied to the city of Rome via his name, the festival which celebrates him is also sympathetically thought to bring blessings onto the city itself of Rome. The name of the festival is Lupercalia, right? And the root of the word Lupercalia is lupus, which means wolf. Lupercus is also a minor Roman deity associated with the festival. And since the festival is about fertility, Juno is a major deity who tends to be associated with it, as well as Pan and some other smaller Roman lesser deities, like a deity called Februus. The festival itself had two primary magical functions. One was to increase fertility via rituals, matchmaking, and the encouragement of coupling, and sometimes orgies during the festival. The other function is for purification. February is seen as a cold, dreary, and unlucky time of year, so a festival that literally gets everybody's blood pumping in every sense of the word was seen as a purification ritual and almost like this vigorous opportunity to get the city going again or get the city moving again. Let's talk a little bit more about what these rituals actually are. So on the morning of February 15th, the morning of Lupercalia, the Luperci priests and the Vestal Virgins would go to the Palatine Cave. They would sacrifice a goat and a dog, and then the Vestal Virgins, who would make these salt cakes, would go and essentially offer the cakes as well. The salt cakes are interesting because they were created specifically with the first grain of last year's harvest, and these salt cakes were used often in different rituals associated with the Vestal Virgins. It was kind of like their thing that they would always offer, but it ties the fertility of the previous harvest season in with the themes of this holiday. So essentially it symbolizes and says, hey, we are going to sacrifice this really important grain that we collected last year to help us create even more abundance and fertility in our agriculture this year. Inside the cave, two young men would smear the blood of these sacrifices on their foreheads, and then they would have to laugh. And the laughing is interesting because oftentimes in a magical context, laughing can drive away evil spirits. So I kind of wonder if that is why they had to laugh after they smeared blood on each other's foreheads. And then they washed away the blood with milk, which is another life-giving substance, right? So I want to consider the magical implications of this particular ritual. Blood is considered a solar and to some extent a martial substance, right? It represents the life force and the will. Milk is a lunar substance. It represents the life force as well, but kind of in a little bit of a different way, in more of a creative, nourishment, growth-oriented kind of way. The sun and the moon are the luminary planets. They give us life. And the solar holidays mark important moments in the agricultural year. The ancient Romans were holding this festival to ensure personal fertility, maybe symbolized by the milk and motherhood and the moon. but also the fertility of the lands, which is symbolized by the sun and the blood. It was not only about the personal fertility, but it was about the fertility of the city of Rome. So sun and moon. The sun and the moon magically are responsible for manifestation, and they both symbolize different types of fertility cycles, right? So again, maybe the moon can symbolize the personal fertility, and maybe the sun can symbolize the agricultural and the economic fertility of the city of Rome. After they sacrificed the goat, they would take the hide and create what was called the februa, which is essentially like a whip, or they called it like a thong. Girl. Essentially, after that, the priests would go down to the city with the februa, and mostly women would line up, and they would offer a body part or an arm or like whatever, and then they would be whipped by this whip, right? This februa, this thong, you know? And it was said that if you were whipped by this ritual object, that you would become pregnant in the next year, or it would just drive away all bad luck from your life. It would uncross you, it would get rid of curses, evil spirits, and purify you in basically every sense of the word. Magically, we can see this as a ritual uncrossing and a blessing spell, because it is banishing something that is causing issues in your life and bringing in something new. It's a spell that works a double action to remove obstacles so that the intention that you're setting can actually manifest without being held back by bad luck or cross conditions. This festival is also known for matchmaking, and you could submit your name and basically you'd be matched with somebody who you could potentially couple with or court for the length of the festival or the following months or for the remainder of the year. And I think that that part of the holiday strikes me as really fascinating and interesting, and obviously, like I said earlier, that's kind of why we have the idea of Valentines now. Let's talk a little bit about how you as a modern pagan can celebrate this holiday. And all of these are just ideas. You don't have to do any of these specifically. You don't have to do them the exact way that I tell you how to do them. Please make these your own, right? These are my ideas that are reconstructionist in nature, you know? So they're not meant to be taken like super by the book, or like you have to do it the way that I tell you to do it. That's not the case at all over here. And you can even just reflect on what you've already heard about this festival and what you've already learned about the symbolism of this festival, and come up with some of your own ideas about how you could exercise that in your magical practice. My first suggestion is taking some of the symbolism of this being an uncrossing and a banishing holiday and cleansing your space, or maybe even cleansing yourself. If you want to get more literal and more intense about this, which I kind of enjoy doing sometimes, you could literally buy a whip. Maybe you already have one. Go for it. Or you could use some type of fabric or scarf or something, you know, that you want to essentially make into a symbolic whip or februa for this holiday. You could take a piece of rope, you could braid together like a length of fabric and or some ribbon or something, and you could do some, you know, knot magic with it as well. I think that that is an incredible way to work with this. So essentially we're creating our own februa, our sacred ritual whip that is going to uncross and bless us. Some things that I recommend doing if you're wanting to do this is to soak the fabric or whatever it is that you're using in like a solution of mostly water. You could use like moon water or blessed water, and then add a little bit of milk, which again is like that life-giving lunar substance, as well as maybe a little bit of your own blood. You can call upon the deity of Februus or Lupercus, which again are like Roman deities associated with this holiday in particular, or you could just call upon, you know, any deity that you work with for fertility or blessings or, you know, anything like that, right? Obviously, Romulus and Remus are the sons of Mars, so if you work with Mars or Aries, you know, he is a deity that you could call upon. You call upon Juno or Hera, or again, whoever it is that you personally like to call upon for these things. You could call upon a servitor or, you know, a variety of things that you might have already going on in your magical practice. But you want to consecrate this with the intention of uncrossing and banishing. Then, like the Luperci priests would do, you can ritually whip yourself gently, I hope so. Just a little slap for these purposes, right? For uncrossing, for banishing, for bringing in new energy into your life and maybe bringing in a specific intention. You can also take it and, bang it on your walls and cleanse your home with it too. And if you're not interested in making this ritual whip, I totally get it. You can just think, what can I do to uncross myself at this time? Cleansing your home, starting your spring cleaning, donating your old clothes, talking to your therapist about stuff that you want to unload, like whatever you have to do in a mundane setting or in a magical setting to let go, cleanse, and uncross yourself would be, something I would totally recommend at this time. Any type of blood magic would be very appropriate for this holiday. And I just wrote an entire Patreon post all about blood magic, all about the best practices so that you can use this magic most effectively and safely, especially if you're intimidated by blood magic but are kind of like intrigued. It's a good read, and I go really in depth into how to use blood in a spell work context. Blood is really good for manifesting true desires. It does have a little bit of a binding quality because it's literally your will. Like, it is tied to you, it's your life force energy, it has your essence on it. So it's really good for bringing in things that you really desire and are already working hard to create in your life. So if you're like putting your blood, sweat, and tears into something already, like maybe you're working on a creative project or you're a student in school, you could use blood magic to essentially make those things easier for you to manifest the final outcome of those situations. I just personally really enjoy blood magic. It's not great for everything. I don't throw blood on every spell that I'm doing. But again, if you want to read all the best practices, that is up in Patreon. I'm also holding a Lupercalia ritual up in the Patreon Coven tier. It is happening on Lupercalia Saturday, February 15th of 2025, and we will be doing a blood and milk spell to uncross and to manifest and bring in a true desire into our life in 2025. So if you want to participate in this guided ritual and celebrate Lupercalia with us, then join the Coven tier and get access to that event. Any type of double action spell, cleansing and banishing, uncrossing and manifesting, banishing and attracting, would be really great this time of year because that's essentially what Lupercalia is doing magically, right? It's double action. It's doing both. It's cleansing and it's manifesting. So you can do this in love, in finances, or in any area of your life that you want to see a bigger transformation in, because it's really helpful when you remove obstacles before you manifest something. It just tends to work so much quicker and faster. So doing any type of double action spell this time of year is a great way to use this energy. Obviously, love magic is great for Lupercalia, right? And fertility magic, if you're like literally trying to start a family, or you want to infuse some fertility into a creative project or something, you could totally work fertility magic at this time. I would recommend, if you're going to do love magic, it's especially great to either strengthen an existing connection or to manifest and find a new lover within the year, right? Because that's essentially what was going on during Lupercalia, as they would be matched up with people who they could potentially, enter a relationship with if they liked them, or they, were trying to couple with existing partners in order to have children. So it's a great time of year to strengthen a connection or to manifest new love. And especially, again, if you want to find somebody this year specifically, it's a great holiday to work with that energy and to get that manifestation done in that time frame. Since February was considered kind of like a time of bad luck for a lot of ancient people, just because of the winter and everything like that, it's a really great time to do anything that brings in luck into your life and maybe plan for the warmer months ahead. Another ancient festival, which is a Greek festival, it's not a Roman festival, but it's another ancient festival. It's called Antisteria. I did a video about Antisteria too. So if you're interested, just scroll back a couple of videos or a couple of episodes and listen to that one. But Antisteria happens to fall right before Lupercalia this year. They're usually around the same time because Antisteria falls on the full moon after the lunar month of Antisteria begins, right? So it happens to fall from February 10th to the 12th of this current year, and then Lupercalia is right after that, right? So the two festivals happen similar times of year, and they hold similar beliefs on we need to banish negative energy and try to bring in fertility, right? So again, similar belief that this time of year was inherently unlucky and you needed to worship fertility gods, which in the case of Antisteria, it was Dionysus, and you needed to have fun and experience revelry. And for Antisteria, that was drinking wine and, having fun with your family and whatnot, right? Lupercalia, it's a little bit different. But we can take these ideas and we can apply them to maybe like the modern concept of seasonal depression or just feeling kind of like low right at the end of the winter when it's just been so cold for so long. So it can be a really great time of year to do some like road opening work to really get things going for the new year. People would have maybe been planning out the agricultural seasons. Lupercalia itself was a fertility ritual for the lands in the city of Rome so that, essentially when they started planting, they would have a really great season. So start thinking about the next season of your life and start planning things, doing some spells for those times of year, manifesting things in advance, setting your intentions, make your summer bucket list, like do all of that kind of stuff, because that's essentially what the ancients were doing as well in a different way. I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought it was super, super fun to make, and I love talking about ancient pagan holidays. So if you've been enjoying me teaching you and talking about ancient pagan holidays from a modern perspective, then subscribe, like this video, let me know that you enjoyed this type of content. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, download the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and I hope you tune in for future episodes of Diaries of a Witch. You can also become a patron and get access to exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. This month, we are doing, again, my Lupercalia ritual in the Coven tier. Speaking of my patrons, we have a ton of new members, so thank you all. I feel like this month, we've kind of exploded with members, which I'm like obviously so excited and happy about. Thank you so much for those of you who listen and watch and have supported me. And I wanted to give a shout out to my Diary and Coven tier members. Thank you so much. Jamie, Cheryl, Emma, Alexis, Alessandra, Ashley, Luna, Taylor, Jordan, Chelsea, Quinn, Floor, Megan A, Megan M, Melissa, Natalie, Jen, Carrie, Kat, Lauren, Kayla, Alethea, Lindsay, Sarah, Quinn, April, Peony, Danya, Joanna, Megan S, Megan R, Callie, Nina, Irene, Chelb, Haley, Abigail, Kristen, Desiree, BFG, Emmy, Hannah, Georgia, Adri, Liz, Kay, SD, Kristen, Shell, Veronica, Ella, Isabella, Lanes, Junie, Elena, Jojo, Teddy, Paige, Shania, and Stellar Steph. Thank you so much for being patrons. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will talk very soon. Happy Lupercalia. Bye.